Imagine a world entirely forsaken to any human control, a world where nature reclaims its rightful original lands, a world where flowers bloom from the corpses of crumbled towers and dilapidated city streets, a world where fungified, mutilated, croaking, undead humans walk the earth, an earth of austere principles that only allow just the bare necessities of survival, a world where everyone is doomed to be someone they aren't in order to survive. A world where humans are just as dangerous to themselves and the infected that relentlessly hunt them. Welcome to the world of The Last of Us. If you by any chance know what a video game is, or you've happened to watch any kind of TV in the last 4 or so years, chances are you've at least heard of The Last of Us. It's like the game. This franchise, at least its first game, more on the other one later, was universally acclaimed for its groundbreaking entry into gaming. Released in the summer of 2013. Dang, I'm old. Naughty Dog, yeah, the guys that made Uncharted, the games, not the horrible movie. Yeah, those guys, they made a silly little game about fungal zombies. Except the game Loki isn't even about zombies, but it is what it is. The Last of Us was critically acclaimed for its mix of perfectly serviceable gameplay combined with its amazing story and presentation. The devs at Naughty Dog made it feel like you're both actually playing a movie and actually surviving in a post-apocalyptic world. The general gist of gameplay is this: you loot, aka press triangle, shoot and or stealth human attackers, triangle optional, shoot and or stealth the infected, again triangle optional, although less optional, and you have Ellie help you or get around to other places, which is, yeah, still charming.
Hey, be careful crossing that thing.
Scoot.
Okay, so it's 2013 or 2003 in the show for no other reason than to be different. See that girl? That's Sarah. She's important. Kinda. She's the son of this guy, Joel. Joel is your average southern, weathered, tough, middle-class, working man. From the eyes of Sarah, I'm also going up the game here, we see the end of the world happening live in 4K.
There seems to be some commotion coming from
Get the hell out of here, bro!
What was that?
As Sarah, confused on what's happening, we explore around the house in search of our dad, that Joel guy. We happen to run into him running away from an infected neighbor, who we promptly caps in the brain right in front of his kid before getting her out of the house and promptly out of the city. And here we follow Joel, Sarah, and that guy. Yeah, that guy right there, that's Tommy. He's sort of important. As they try to get out of Dodge, unfortunately they run into LA traffic in their attempt to get out, and some hijinks and car crashes later. We end up on foot running through the streets of Austin, Texas, dodging both people and freshly infected. They're just called infected in this universe, not zombies or smokers or whatever. It is what it is. One narrow escape later, and we reach an outpost where it seems like all is good with the soldier and whatnot, until he gets orders to kill us, because probably thinks we're quote-unquote sick or whatever. We try to run away, but fail, and the letter dies, and yeah, great mocap, by the way. This scene always shivers, always, all the time. Fast forward 20 years, we wake up in Boston, of all places. Our boy Joel has seen some things, and he's a lot colder, like pretty jaded as a human being. Like, there isn't a single emotional bone left in his body. He's kind of a shell of a man at this point in time. We meet this lady. See her? That lady right there? That's Tess. She's kind of important. She's like the low-key, the underground boss of this new quarantine life in Boston that we're living. Yeah, Joel's become a smuggler and a mostly heavy-duty tank. You know, he's Tess's right-hand man. Tess is the real one calling the shots here because she's just built like that. We start on the lookout for some guy. This guy right here, his name's Robert. He's not actually that important. Yeah, he stole some guns from us and whatever, he owes us. We don't really like him, so we kill him. Then we go to the Fireflies, so this paramilitary group that's trying to find a cure for humanity and fight against the Asian military, yada. Whatever. We meet another woman, Marlene. Can you guess what I'm gonna say next? She's the leader of the Fireflies, and she basically, we don't get our guns, but we do traffic children.
You what?
Pause on that. This is Ellie. Ellie is kind of the focal point of this game. Roughly an hour or so of gameplay later, we get caught on the outside walls of Boston. We get tested to see if we're infected when suddenly this Ellie girl goes and stabs this Fedra guy. And this is where we learn that she's immune. She was bit a whole week ago, and the infection usually takes no longer than a day or so max to set in. And yet she's perfectly fine. And so, another hour of gameplay, and we find ourselves at the Capitol building where we're supposed to meet the other Fireflies, but they're dead. Joel basically says, darn. Well, we tried our best. Let's go home. But Tess is insistent to see this Ellie thing through. Turns out that sometime within the last hour or so of gameplay, Tess was bitten, and she's basically a dead woman now. Her last wish to her situationship buddy Joel is to get this Ellie girl to Salt Lake City and potentially save the world. Or something along those lines. From here, we go on this cross-country journey with Ellie and Joel. It's a slow burn, but captivating and heartfelt story about love and choices. And yeah, speaking about choices, Joel kind of dooms all of humanity. Yeah, Joel is basically given a massive trolley problem. Save this one girl or save all of humanity. The whole story is basically just telling us how one man can get to a point of saving one over, potentially millions. Basically without hesitation. The caveat is that Ellie has to have her brain screwed, aka she won't live for there to be a cure. I mean, there's going to be a cure, but she'll be dead. So without actually talking about the logistics or the ethics of the actual content of the procedure, it's still basically a trolley problem. But Joel makes his choice. Lies about it to Ellie afterwards, saying there's no immune people, or there's more immune people like her in the world. Ellie makes Joel swear that that's the truth. And whether or not she actually believes him is ambiguous. But that's how the game ends, and that sets up for a sequel. 7 years later. But hey, don't worry, because now there's a remaster and a remake and a remaster of the second game. It's only 5 years old, which wouldn't even need a remaster because it's a backwards compatible system. Oh, and did I mention that there's a whole show now with 2 seasons, with the 3rd one on the way. Man, that's a lot of content for a franchise that only has 2 entries. Again, this game was and is beloved by essentially everyone. Seeing this modest man turn older, grittier, killier, like really killier, like there's a lot of killing in this game. And his relationship with this foul-mouthed bundle of joy is such a genuine treat. The story, the plot rather, is very simple, but the story is the characters. How do these 2 people who are essentially opposites, both bound by their own different traumas, end up bonding, loving, and caring for each other? How do you carry hope in an apocalypse? How do you carry pain in an apocalypse? How do you grow up in a place like this? The story gives you all of these and so much more to chew on. But it's just that simple question. Would you have made the same choice Joel did? That question alone has kept this story alive and will keep it alive for decades to come. 7 years later, the people still asking that question get to chew on the actual ramifications of what Joel did. It's the year 2020, and everything is not particularly great. Now more than ever, real life was starting to reflect some of the potential possibilities of The Last of Us, and not in sickness, no, but in the ravaging aggressiveness and hate of people. The second Last of Us game suffered several leaks just only a couple months before launch, and people were not happy with some of the things they were seeing. Some people were so upset with the spoiled plot that they refused to even buy the game. Anyone who was even remotely familiar with gaming at the time, it was hard to avoid spoilers, or at least not hear talk about the leaks. People were so outraged at this plot that I'm once again going to speedrun through. We pick up almost right where we left off. We're with Joel and Tommy, and Joel is saying to Tommy along the lines, yeah, I murdered like 100 people, basically everybody in that hospital, doomed humanity, but I did save Ellie, so, it's worth it, and, you would do the same, right? Tommy is...
That's a lot.
Reasonably shocked, but he says he'll take it to the grave. An hour or so of gameplay later, we meet the people of Jackson, Wyoming. An actual place, like a real city where people can build life and have general refuge from the apocalyptic banes of society. And now that I think about it, yeah, of course the only safe haven in the country is in Wyoming. There's only 12 people that live there now anyways. it'd be a no-brainer to settle there. The game also introduces us to this random girl. Yeah, her name, according to the subtitles, is Woman. Yeah, she may or may not be important later. We switch back and forth between a now older Ellie, 4 years later after events of the first game, and all that, yada yada yada, and random woman lady until random woman lady meets Joel, the random woman lady who we now know as Abby, simple name, takes Joel back to her lodge where she's been camping out with her friends. Only like two of which out of this whole group are actually important, and how many yards do you think she can get on that ground?
Bruh.
This basically kicks off the rest of the game, as the majority of the game's focus is now Ellie, and by extension the player, wanting nothing else but to get revenge on Abby for killing Joel, cause like, how could you kill Joel? That's our boy Joel. That's the basic synopsis of the second game, and now we can actually slow down a bit and get to the actual meat and potatoes of the video. The game and the show alike present heavy themes of cycles of violence, revenge, lamentation, and sorrow, all of that. There's even themes of tribalism, themes of depression, but also forgiveness and self-acceptance and moving forward. There's just so much to unpack in this game that would justify its own video, because there's no amount of justice that can be done here for that. But speaking of justice, which is one of the themes in the game, by the way, outside of the game, yeah, there's a lack of all of those other thematic things going on. Going back to even before the release of the second game, again, people weren't outraged purely because of Joel's death. They were outraged because Abby, of all people, killed him. And the fact that she did it so soon. Joel dies within the first 2-3 hours of the game, leaving players to sit with that death for up to 20 plus hours of gameplay before the story ends. People were complaining that that woman with Abby's physique can't exist. People were complaining that Joel was killed by a trans person, even though Abby isn't even trans. People were criticizing Ellie's lesbian relationship with Dina.
Let me finish my sentences.
Yeah, she's kind of important to the story, by the way. People were mad about it as if Ellie didn't kiss Bradley way back in 2013. Like, bro, she's been gay. This is not new information. The biggest FU Naughty Dog gave to the players was forcing the player to play half of the game as Abby. Yes, the game makes you play as Joel's killer. That decision right there turned off almost half the player base, which is half already of the people who even decide to buy the game. So now there's only 25% people playing by the end. It's ironic though, because at least from a pure gameplay perspective, Abby's part of the game is way more fun than Ellie's. For one, she's a freaking tank. She's built like Brock Lesnar and can literally just punch half the infected to death. Arguably, her character is also pretty profound for the most part, as we see her on this journey of recovery and growth, and it's kind of beautiful. Other criticisms of her story and gameplay aside, the overall total package is at least worth the experience, but not everybody shared that view. People genuinely hated this game, and haters hated other people that played it. During the summer of 2020, I swear, conversation about The Last of Us Part 2 was inescapable, and it was so polarizing. It's still polarizing to this day. It was either you loved the game, or you hated it, and by extension, anybody else that loved the game should fall down a hole and die a gruesome death. Yeah, the outcry reached so far, got so heinous, that people were sending the actors and developers death threats over the video game. It should have never gotten so far, nor so deep. At the end of the day, it's a heavy game that made some bold choices. Whether you agree with the choices or not is one thing, but to not only deprive oneself of even being able to enjoy the product in the first place, and then to go as far as to harass the people who spent literal years of their life trying to make this piece of art is never okay. Under the story that's hard to swallow is a AAA survival action kinda horror, but not really game that plays immaculately. It's finely tuned, it's immersive, it looks amazing. Like, they got this thing to run and look this well on almost decade-old hardware. Like, this is running on a PS4, and it's generally just fun to play. It's challenging, the AI is smart for the most part. The game is graphically graphic and beautiful in the way that it's absolutely grotesque and horrific in some places. There's few games that can replicate someone's legs getting blown off the 12 gauge shotgun at point blank range like this game can. Yet despite all of this, many have written it off or denied it, and it's poisoned by a story they don't like, or particularly by a certain buff, blonde-haired character they don't like. Fast forward 5 years, you can only imagine that the team making The Last of Us show would have some trouble adapting such a polarizing game to not just a hopefully more enjoyable story, but also taking the very intentional, very out there structure of the game and its non-linear storytelling and converting that into TV. In the original Last of Us Part 2 game, we get a bunch of the story out of order, and it's up to us, the players, to recontextualize and reevaluate the game based on what we're seeing and what we're playing through. The jumping timeline is kind of integral to the way the story is told. At least it should be, but Craig Mason didn't think that way. Yeah, the story of Season 2 of The Last of Us is just the same as the game, generally, up until the point when the players force in Abby's perspective. That's where we're left off right now. That's what we're waiting for Season 3. But instead, what we got, the story in the show is presented as a straightforward, both in the sense of timeline, but in general narrative technique. Like, as straightforward as possible. Now, the problem was not only did the show deviate too much from the game, which half the community already hated, but now they were changing what fundamentally made the game different, and then on top of that, diluted it with bad writing and other point choices. The Last of Us Season 2 from a writing standpoint is a big old question mark in writing, that's for sure. But the actual writing discussion only takes up a fraction of the conversation. Let's talk about Ellie. Bella Ramsey. Half the blame for the second season not being up to par is because of this woman right here. She's real and also kind of important. In the first season of The Last of Us, many were questionable about casting Bella, but she fit the role well enough. She's a woman that looks like a 13-year-old playing a 13-year-old. Fine, makes sense. Most expected some kind of recast to play Ellie for Season 2, since Ellie would be more grown, but no. Bella reprised her role, and instantly people started writing this show off. But here's where it gets weird, and this is for her role in the first season too. At first, there's the usual complaints people have with casting choices. Oh, that doesn't look like Ellie. Bella doesn't look like her. But then we get some more concerning quote-unquote critiques, saying that Bella isn't pretty enough to play Ellie, or that she isn't pretty at all, and basically half the complaints just turned into dunking on her appearance, which isn't fair at all, of course. And then there's a few reasons why all these complaints are just, BS. Take Tommy, and then take Tommy. These are the same guy, but they're not the same guy, because this is Tommy, and this Tommy doesn't look like that Tommy, but they're all Tommy, and nobody really complained when Gabrielle Luna was playing Tommy. Flip that onto Ellie, and then onto Ellie. Nobody really complains that this Ellie didn't look like this Ellie, or that retroactively this Ellie didn't look like this Ellie, but this Ellie doesn't look like that Ellie, so now things are getting heated. Debatedly, this is way less jarring of a change from Tommy to Tommy than this Ellie to Ellie. And there's even more questions on the casting, like casting Caitlin Denver. Blonde, check, white, check, but she's not built like she can snap you into a twig, so that's not a check at all. And narratively, Abby kind of has to be buff. It's the narrative, manifestation of her obsession with Joel. She trained like she's in One Punch Man to be able to fight this dude. That is how deeply it is ingrained to her, so she kind of has to be buff. So now she isn't, and now people are complaining you can't win. I remember playing The Last of Us Part 2 when it first dropped. My brother had bought it on release day, and we shared the PS4, so I would start playing the game like a day or two after him. Anytime I'd walk in and see him playing, I have to turn around because, I didn't want to be spoiled. I want to experience the whole game for myself. The Last of Us is a game where you just want to walk around and just exist in the world. My first run in the game clocked in almost 40 hours, and a third of that was just me walking around, exploring for collectibles, but also just enjoying the game, chewing on the bits of the story that made me think, parts I didn't fully agree with or even understand until later in the game. Just look at this. Just imagine walking around in this beauty. I love this natural, almost surreal artistic take on nature's reclamation of a post-apocalyptic world. Like this world is so beautiful and it's so beautifully ruined. And then contrast that with the gameplay, which is gritty and heavy. You really feel every punch and gunshot and explosion. There's so much detail, so much environmental storytelling. Like when you fight enemies in this game, mostly wolf soldiers, they call out to each other by their names. They mourn their friends when you kill them. They're real people with real connections and their own stories. It makes you feel like this world is so lived in and you're just a small part of this whole equation. And there's so much more to this game than the story that we see in the cutscenes. There's entire stories laying around in the environments, and that if you explore, they're so rich and deep, and there's just layers and layers. Even when I was watching the show and was impressively disappointed with how they fumbled the main story, I still found tons of enjoyment from the second season. For one, the set design was amazing. The game already looked unreal, and somehow the show translated that and made the cordyceps and all the infected look even more grotesque, even more real. It felt so immersive from a set design. Some of the changed story beats didn't exactly serve the narrative that great, but in isolation, there are some beautiful scenes in this season of the show that are just so heartbreaking and so breathtaking and so well performed. Like the Eugene death scene is one I can always point to as being both amazingly beautiful and actually kind of useful to the story somewhat. Basically, any scene that Pedro Pascal did is gonna be great. I mean, it's Pedro Pascal. That's a no-brainer. The music was also top notch throughout the game and the show, and the soundtrack really helps set the scene. And all of these things, the compound, it's great. It's just there's so much to enjoy about this series. And it really sucks that the greater conversation about these parts of the show and game are either drowned out or basically non existent at all, because we'd rather focus on the blunders or what we don't like, making everything just disagreeable and toxic, when in reality, there's still so much to love and enjoy here between both of the mediums. I'll always find joy in the original Last of Us game in the first season. Of course, they're great, but I love the second game infinitely more than the first. I can't even lie. And while the second season of the show did disappoint me, I'll still come back to it because I still enjoy it for both the good and even some of the bad in an ironic sense. It's never okay to shut down other people for enjoying something that they like. That's one of the worst feelings ever. It's even worse to do that to the people who are creating the art. Similarly, the showrunners and actors of this show were also receiving death threats and dox threats and just harassment online. And all of this, again, is never okay. But it also goes to show that we ultimately fell into the trap that Ellie did. We proved Naughty Dog and the writing team, and we proved to them that we only ended up repeating the cycle of violence.